Hey guys, so I'm going to be giving a couple of tips and showing you how to complete a proper air squat and some awesome advice for helping you to have proper form in this. So what you really want to do is, this is such a foundational and functional movement that mastering this is really helpful in moving on to more complex things like what we did today with thrusters and adding in shoulder presses, or variations of squats where we're moving around. Really focusing in on how to complete a proper exercise is super important. Something I'm still aiming for myself, especially after giving birth. Things get all moved around, and so it's been hard to get back to a normal and proper technique and form. But to start out with, what you want to do is give yourself enough room to sit back. You want your feet just about hip width and shoulder width apart, so everything should be in line as far as that goes. There are squats that have a wider range or a narrower range, but for a typical, just your average form, what we want to do is really just keep our alignment here. So feet are in line with hips and shoulders. What you want to do first is really focus on driving your hips back. So every time you squat, think about pressing those hips straight back, not arching your back, but just pressing your hips back, sinking down into your glutes like this, and then rising, driving up through those glutes and squeezing to then finish the movement. So from the side, what you want to do again, push those hips back, keeping a neutral spine. You don't want to arch your back, you don't want to curve under, anything like that. Just keep your chest up, press your hips back, just like you're sitting in that chair back there, and then drive back up through the hips. A couple of things that you can always pay attention to, depending on how you perform this squat, and if you record it after watching this and send it to me, I can totally help you with tips and tricks of how to inactivate and activate muscles to help you move through this movement a little bit easier. But a lot of times what happens is that we have overactive muscles that are pulling us different directions than maybe the squat wants us to go, and so therefore your form can be a little off. That's a lot of times the case. So what can happen is, especially if let's say you're performing the squat, and how we would assess this is if your hands are up overhead. You perform the squat and you can't keep your balance here. A lot of times it's that your core is overactive, it's pulling your muscles down, and so you'll find your hands falling forward like that. So any muscles that you have that are overactive, how we can correct those is by foam rolling them and then stretching them out to lengthen them out. Because when you have a muscle that's working, it's contracting, it's getting shorter, and so what we want to do to help release it is to then roll out the tension in it first with a foam roller, and then stretch it, and that's going to help it to lengthen back out. So foam rolling things like, let's say you feel like you're performing the squat and your feet keep turning out, right? So regardless of what you do, your feet turn out, maybe your knees come in like this. It could be that you have really overactive hip muscles, and so you need to foam roll those. If your feet are turning out, a lot of times it's that your calves are overactive. So foam rolling your calf and then doing calf stretches. So just simple things like this, foam roll and then stretch. Those two things in combination can really make a huge difference in performing a squat. I'm not going to get into all of the corrective action. Just know if you are struggling with something in particular, shoot me a message, send me an email. I would be happy to, as a personal trainer, be able to help you and work through this together in correcting your form. But those are really helpful tips, things that have helped me specifically. Hopefully this helps you. Again, I always find it helpful to just, if you need to practice, literally get in front of a mirror, have your phone, have a chair, and practice being hips width apart, really pressing those hips back, keeping a neutral spine, finding that chair. This is essentially the position that you want to work to get to, and sometimes that just takes strengthening those muscles, lengthening them back out, and repetition in order to get to this perfect squat form.